What's up, everybody? I'm Kendrick. I'm in my backyard again, and this video is finally gonna be the one where I talk about my experience in the LA Marathon. So this is actually gonna be the second time I'm recording this video. The first time, my best friend Ellison, who actually watches my videos, he told me that after the third minute, the audio just cut out, and that sucked. But hopefully we can just recap this and make it a little bit more concise, a little bit tighter. So let's get into it. So on March 20th, I ran the LA Marathon, and I would say probably December 20, it's like what year is it anymore? December 2021, I decided to run in the LA Marathon, and it wasn't until January where I actually signed up. So I had a few goals, a few expectations, and I guess the first thing that I want to talk about is my actual time. So I finished in 3 hours 36 minutes, and this is my first marathon, obviously. I don't really follow a lot of actual marathon runners, so it's like I follow some of the elite runners, and they run in ridiculous times, Eliud Kipchoge, he runs in like a 2:03, and then he ran a sub 2 before, and then some of the more elite runners will run in the 2-hour range. So I don't know how my time really stacks up against whether it's good or it's average. But for me, my goal was to run under 4 hours, and I achieved that. And I would say another goal was to just not suffer while I was running, and I also achieved that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my overall experience and kind of how I prepared and what is going to come next. So for the preparation, I was training pretty consistently around 5 to 6 days a week, including strength training. So I didn't take out strength training, but I did supplement some of my exercises. So a lot of more power movements, like deadlifts. I would deadlift occasionally, but definitely not as consistently as I was before marathon prep. But I would incorporate more body weight, lunges. If you follow Knees Over Toes guy, he has an amazing Instagram and YouTube channel with great resources and a lot of exercises that really help to strengthen knee joints and overall body performance. So I incorporated some split leg lunges, and I would definitely recommend looking at his content to kind of understand what that is. So I would sub that for my deadlifts. But overall, I was putting in anywhere between 30 to 40 miles a week, and to me that was sufficient for what I wanted to achieve with this marathon. But let's kind of jump into the morning of the marathon. So morning of the marathon, I normally don't eat in the mornings. I normally just eat one meal a day. So I do pretty strict intermittent fasting, but I knew just from training that I would have to properly fuel for this marathon. So in the morning, I had a honey stinger waffle, which are super delicious. The flavor that I eat is salted caramel. I had some peanut butter on there, and I sliced up a banana, and that was kind of, I guess, my breakfast. So I also had some hydration and electrolytes before I left my house. and that included so the supplements that I use, I go through the company BPN. So I always take like strong greens, strong reds, and I also add a liquid IV into a shaker bottle, 28 ounces of water, and I consume that. I also added a scoop of G1M Sport, which is a carbohydrate electrolyte supplement. So I wanted to kind of be ahead of hydration and kind of like not have to worry about it so much during the run. I did have a waist pack, a Nathan's waist pack with 16 ounces of water, where I included liquid IV, G1M Sport, and I did add a pack of instant coffee from Civil Coffee. So I added some caffeine in there, which did help me during the run. And not only did it help me like physically, but also mentally, just because I knew like, oh, like I'm drinking, I'm consuming energy and it tastes good. So it gave me that like extra push. So I get to Dodger Stadium around, I believe, 5:15. The race for the open corral didn't start until around like 6:55. So during my whole preparation, I knew I wanted to run shirtless, because whenever I was training, I ran shirtless, and I didn't want to have to be burdened by carrying a shirt or hearing stories about how, like, I have some family friends who would help and volunteer for the LA Marathon, and they would always talk about how like clothing and shirts would just be left just strewn like on the streets of LA, and I didn't want to like waste a shirt, and I didn't want to have to burden like someone by just dumping my shirt. So in the end, it was a great call. I saw a lot of other runners who were holding shirts kind of like halfway and near the end of the marathon, so shirtless was the way to go for me. So yeah, like it was a really windy morning, which was kind of like intense. Like it was intensely windy, and I saw so many people with like these cold blankets, also trash bags just like draped over them, and ponchos just to like keep themselves warm and protect themselves from the wind. And I probably looked like a psychopath walking around Dodger Stadium without a shirt, but that was fine. It was kind of awesome because I've done a handful of Spartan races, and they really hype you up before the races, and I have a tendency to like kind of get caught up with what's going on around me. And in like during the Spartan races, there's times where I would kind of break out with the group and kind of feel like this energy dump maybe like 5 to 10 minutes into the race. So this time I was trying to be like, or during this marathon, I was trying to be really conscious of that. And I kept on repeating to myself, like, run your own race, run your own race. So I had my headphones on. I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast with David Goggins. I was able to get through 1.5 episodes, or probably a little bit more than half of that second episode during the entire marathon. So overall, like, my pacing was pretty consistent. I would say before the 13-mile mark, I had a few like low 7-minute mile, not laps, but I was able, like, sets or splits. And then after that, because I had my Strava going and also my Nike Run Club going on, and I had to pull myself back because I didn't look at the course. So I didn't know like the elevation gains. I didn't know how it would be coursed out, and I didn't want to be surprised by any sudden like elevation gains. where if I pushed really hard early on, I would be like gassed out. So again, my goal was to not suffer. So I had to remind myself, like, run your own race, and to also like pull back a little bit when I found myself trying to maybe like get around people, or I would maybe like kind of set my sights on certain individuals and like get past them. I just had to remind myself, like, this is not what it's about. It's about finishing and finishing well. So one thing that really helped was during my training, I did a few practice rounds where I brought some gels or goos. At first I was using goos, and then I transitioned into honey stinger gels because I wanted to keep kind of like the ingredients consistent. I didn't want any like weird surprises during the race. Like, I saw a lot of people at different points sprinting towards the porta potties, and I was like, damn, like, you either have to pee really bad or you're gonna like crap your pants. And I didn't wanna, that was like one of my fears, like, oh, I don't want to be a story where like I crap my pants during the marathon. So I guess one other goal that I achieved was I did not crap myself during the marathon. But I did bring 5 honey stinger gels, and the flavor was fruit punch because it reminded me of being in Hawaii and drinking a lot of Mai Tais. So I wanted to have a little bit of happiness during the marathon, and which seemed to help. You know, I try to pace it out where every 6 miles I was taking a gel. So I took one at the start of the race, took another one at mile 6, I took my third one at mile 12, took my fourth one at mile 18, and then it didn't really make sense to me to take it at mile 24 since there would only be 2 more miles left after that. So I decided to take it at mile 22, which was a good call, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit later because I really needed that that energy boost. So when it came to gels and like how many I brought, like I felt like my preparation was on point there. I would say the course overall was like pretty cool. There's a few moments where we had some gains, and you know, running through LA, like, it's not, to me it wasn't like, it's not really beautiful. You're kind of just like running through the streets, and I kind of do that on my training anyways. So the only cool thing that I kind of took away from this whole experience was like kind of running through like Chinatown, and also parts of, no, we didn't really touch like Little Tokyo, but they had like the Japanese drummers when we were like running up a hill, and that was kind of cool. And then we ran past this one restaurant that I really want to go to, which is a Filipino barbecue spot called Park's Finest. And I was like, oh shoot, like that's where the restaurant is. Obviously they were closed because it was early in the morning, and I really want to eat there now. That was one of the cooler sights that I saw. Other than that, it was just like running through the LA streets, which to me, again, it's not like, even though I live in LA, I didn't really feel like, oh, like I feel a lot more connected to the city, mainly because like I drive everywhere that I want to go to. So even then, like, I still need GPS, which is kind of a bummer. Like, I'm not very good with directions when it comes to that. So luckily, all the course direction was great. But there were a lot of moments, or a few moments, where there were some like downhills, and those were kind of fun because with a lot of Spartan races, like, there's downhills, and just practice like running downhill is a skill. You know, you can either try to like brace yourself and brake, and I feel like a lot of people will do that, and it's like really hard on the knees because there's a lot of like impact going on. or you can just bomb downhill. And it's like a little bit lighter on your joints, but if you do like take a misstep and you eat it, then pretty much like the costs can be very detrimental. So because I have like a good amount of practice running downhill, those moments were awesome because I was able to kind of like recover during those times. I think one of the coolest parts for me was around mile 18. All of a sudden, you hear my name being screamed, and it was my wife Olivia, and she had like this little cowbell. Shout out to like the LA Running Club, I believe. They were handing out little red cowbells to a lot of the spectators. So someone gave one to my wife. She was ringing it. I heard her screaming my name through my headphones, and I was able to like wave at her, and that gave me like a huge energy boost for about like 45 seconds, which was awesome. And it was kind of crazy because like it was a pretty wide street. I was running on the left side, and if I was running on the right side, I would have completely missed her. But because I was running on the left, like I was able to like actually see her, and that was a really cool experience for me. But after mile 18, man, it got tough because it was just like uphill, and the gains, it wasn't like a huge like hill, but it was just like constant, and it just felt like it was never ending, and it was all like pretty demoralizing, honestly, because I knew I was close to being done, but it didn't feel like I was close to being done. And I really just had to like dig deep, remind myself like why I'm there. I had to really like dig into like the mental strength and the endurance, because I saw a lot of people like stopping to like either stretch or to puke. I think I saw one guy who was about to puke, and I just had to like, that was a good motivation for me to just like book it and like and push through and sprint past him. So finally at like mile 22 we hit a bend, but before that I hit a moment where I had like I became like pretty stupid, because like we're running on the street, and on the opposite side of the street I see other people running, and I was thinking, oh, that's super weird that people would volunteer. Like, I didn't think that they were part of the marathon. I thought that they were just random people who were also running for camaraderie, I guess. And it wasn't until like a few miles later I realized, oh, I'm an idiot. Those people are part of the marathon, and there's gonna be a bend where we run through, and then we end up on the other side of the street. So, oh my goodness. I hit that bend, and then I knew like, okay, like I can do this. Like I just have to like keep on going. And it was awesome because it was during this point in the podcast that I was listening to where David Goggins was talking about, you know, there's so many people who don't realize, like in whatever they're doing, how much they leave on the table. Meaning like, for example, in this marathon, it's like there was 4 miles left, and I saw a handful of people walking. And, you know, I think it's awesome because people will have different goals. Some people will have a goal to just like, this is their first marathon and they want to finish. Cool. There's other people who are trying to run for a specific time. And I think for a lot of those people, it's like, how many of them, and something that I was like asking myself, it's like, okay, like, am I gonna give it my all? Or is it gonna be one of those things where I'm gonna cross that finish line and realize, oh, I could have pushed a little bit harder. So it was that awesome reminder that as I was getting closer to just finish as strong as I could. So as I was running, all of a sudden I look to my left again and I see my buddy Andrew pop out, and we hug, and he was there to support one of his other friends who was running the marathon. And it just so happened, like, I knew he was going to be there. I didn't expect to see him because I was really expecting his friend to finish way before me. So it was another like big emotional boost for me to run hard. And yeah, that was like super cool to just, for my first marathon, to have like that kind of support. So as I was going, I think there was like maybe less than a mile left, and I see these two guys walking, and I just was like in this mode of like, we're so close, like, come on everyone, let's get together and just like run as hard as we can. So I looked to the two guys, I'm like, come on guys, like, we're almost there, like, let's finish strong. And they were kind of just like, nah, like, we're good. And I was like, all right, whatever, like, I'm gonna go then. So the weird thing about the finish was, as you're going, there's this right turn, and I was kind of expecting like this really long straightaway to the finish line, and that didn't happen. Pretty much like right when you make that right turn, that's the end. So I make that right turn, I see the finish line, I'm like, oh shoot. So I take out my phone and I record the finish, and then as I'm crossing, I hear my name being shouted out again, and somehow Olivia was able to, I called her because she was telling me, okay, when you are a mile from the finish line, like, call me and let me know. So I called her and I told her like I'm a mile away, like I'm almost done. So she was able to get to the finish line, and she was able to see me. And during that time, she was able to befriend a photographer who I think was maybe taking photographs for like a sponsored runner or someone who's more like way more important than me. But the guy told Olivia, like, let me know when your husband's here and then I'll take pictures for you. So I kept on hearing, like, as I was crossing, I hear my name being screamed, and then I hear her screaming like, that's my husband, that's my husband. And I see this guy like, hey, like, look over here. And I'm like, oh, I guess like everyone's like getting their photograph taken like at the finish line. That's super awesome. Again, not the case. I guess when I run long distances, or maybe just in general, like, I'm just really dumb. So all these like make-believe stories just come into my head. So yeah, it was one of those things where I was telling myself if I didn't run under 4 hours, I would have to do this again. And I really didn't want to do that. And then another thing that I was thinking about was like, but what if I do really well? Like, then what does that mean? And this kind of gets into like future projects and future races. And one big takeaway was I ran a really consistent race. Like, my splits were pretty consistent all the way through. Again, I finished 3 hours, 36 minutes. The clock time said 3:39, but again, like, because of the chip, it starts and stops when you cross that starting line and you cross the finish line. So my final time was 3 hours, 36 minutes, and that was awesome. Like, I didn't think I would be that close to 3.5 hours. So my takeaway was, could I run faster? I think I could run faster if I had proper training and if I like hired a coach. And to me, like, running isn't so much about like the accolades, but it's more about like the benefits afterwards. So, the health benefits, and also just like the mental fortitude that is developed through that discipline. So then I started to think like, okay, if I can't run faster, maybe I can run farther, which means maybe I will get into like the ultra running realm and world, which is a little bit scary and daunting. But if you were to ask me like 2 years ago, like, would you ever run a marathon, I would say hell no, and I would say that's impossible, and I don't even think my legs would be able to handle that. But here we are. And I think that's like one of the big takeaways is like, if you just prepare properly, like, we can achieve like a lot of things. And for me, that's like a big takeaway. Like, I always hear people telling me, like, when I was younger, before I crossed over that 30-year mark in my life, like, oh, once you hit 30, it's all downhill. Once you hit 35, it's all downhill. Once you hit 37, it's all downhill. And it's like, man, like, if you keep on telling yourself that, then for sure it's all downhill. But for me, I was like, I'm gonna just keep on getting better and better, and I'm gonna make that choice. And even though thinking about ultra marathons is like maybe that next quote unquote impossible task, like, it's something that I'm gonna try to prepare for and push myself towards, because, man, who knows, like, that'll be like a whole other experience, and so much more like knowledge being gained, Right now I have a half marathon coming up. So one of the coolest things that happened through this experience and all the training was, my wife, she downloaded a half marathon training calendar, and she was like, oh, like, I want to run a half marathon. And I was like, oh, why do you want to run a half marathon? And she told me that, just watching me train and the dedication and the work that I put in was really inspiring. And that blew me away, like, all of this honestly was really for myself, and yeah, for like other people to like kind of look at and to kind of like see my journey. But I never really thought like I would inspire people to see how far they could go. And that is like really special. So I told her, like, all right, like, if you're gonna run it, then like I'll run it too. So we're gonna be running the OC half marathon in May. I also have a Spartan race coming up in May in Big Bear, and it's going to be a 5K. So it's a sprint, it's going to be super fast, and it's going to be really fun, like, I miss doing Spartan races, because, like, again, running to me isn't fun, but like going through those obstacles, like, it's like really, to me, like, that's fun. So I'm going to be running that with my best buddy James. And then further down the line in November, I'm going to be running the Malibu half marathon, and that might be it for this year, unless like other races pop up. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave it at that. Overall, it was a really like cool experience, and something that I'm going to like constantly reflect on, and I'm still processing. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.